Today we're going to be talking about a handful of different drills, and so in class you will be working with drills this coming week, and there's a variety of different kind of power drills that are out there, and so we're going to take a few minutes, kind of go over the different drills, and then the operation of each one and kind of their unique features and that sort of thing. The most common and probably oldest hand-powered drill is the regular old corded power drill, and if you look at your drawings on the safety stuff, you'll see that this is the kind of the picture of the drill that's in there. And this is what's called a half-inch drill, and so that means that the chuck will open up to a half-inch, and you can put bits that are up to a half-inch in diameter on the shank piece in here. And so it's a pretty simple, straightforward machine, a little motor housing and body in here, a trigger for turning it on, switch for moving forward and going in reverse. You just slide that one way or the other. And then the front end, if you remember from the diagrams in your readings, this is called the chuck. Now, this particular drill is officially a corded drill with what's called a keyed chuck, K-E-Y-E-D. Keyed because when you tighten down the jaws of the chuck onto the bit, you're going to use a key to tighten them down. Whereas this drill that I have next to it, it's not as big of a drill. It has a little lighter motor and used for more lighter duty applications and things. If you were to look at the chuck on this drill, there's no place for a key. And so this is just a keyless corded drill, okay? And so keyless, so the chuck is keyless. And so to tighten that down, you just tighten it by hand. You would turn it in, and then you would give the trigger a light pull once the bit is snug, just to kind of snug it down in there, okay? If you take a look at this drill here, same as our keyless over here in the chuck area, but then is also cordless. If you've got a lot of woodwork, or some are light duty work, or even moderate duty work in today's world, these cordless drills are amazing. Cordless drills typically always have the keyless chuck also, and then a battery pack somewhere on there. This one is here and slides on as a power source. Okay, we'll kind of work through how those work in a few minutes. The other drill that we're going to focus on today hasn't always been around, but it's more common now, used more so in driving screws and some of those kinds of things, and that's the cordless impact drill. You'll see how that works in a few minutes, but instead of a chuck with jaws and things, it is a quick release chuck, and so you just put your bit in and it snaps it right in there, and to release it you just pop it out, similar to what you would like with air compressor hoses and the like. And so these have are kind of a specialized application, and you'll see how that is when we get to operation in a couple minutes. So that's kind of the overview of the different kinds of drills. So we'll start with this corded drill, and as you look at this corded drill, again, you will see that there are a lot of grooves right here, and that's a place for the key to work. And the simplest way to operate this drill is you just turn the chuck, and you can see that those jaws will open up. And then if you're going to put a bit in, you'll go ahead and take a bit. This is what we call a twist drill bit. Most twist bits, depending on the material they're made of and things, are dual applications, so they can be used in wood and metal and some other things. There are other specialty bits, but we're going to use these combo bits for the most part today, the twist bits, and go from there. I want to put this bit in, so I'm going to open my jaws up, and I'm going to slide that bit in so that it sits in to the chuck, and I'm going to turn it so that it's tight. Now that's just snug. If I try to use this now, the bit's going to fall out when I turn the drill on. It's going to slide and do things in there. One of the most important things when using this kind of drill and putting bits in and that sort of thing is that if it is a corded drill, you always make sure that it is unplugged before doing any work around here. So if you bump the trigger or whatever, especially if you're using some of the really big bits or sharper bits and things, you don't turn it on and hurt yourself. That's also why, in our lab at least, I make sure that all of the keys are taped to the end of the plug next to where the plug head is. That way, in order to use the key, you have to bring it up here, and that's your reminder that, oh hey, I better unplug it before I start using the key. Now what you're going to do is you're just going to take this little piece of the key and you're going to tighten it, put it into the hole, and you're just going to tighten clockwise. Now one of the things you'll see is that along the chuck there are 3 dimples or 3 holes for the key. You always make sure that you tighten all 3 into all 3 sides. Several times people will just want to tighten one and think it's good enough, but you might have been able to see that even when I hit the second one, I can still snug that down. And so you want to go into all 3. A lot of times I go into all 3 and then I just go over it one more time just to make sure that that bit is nice and snug in there. Because of the way that that tightens down, you need to use all 3 of those sides. There's 3 holes there for a reason. You don't just use a single one. And in this piece that drill bit that we're going to use today, you want it in there nice and snug. If you have really large drill bits, you really want them snugged in there because you don't want to get partway through and have the jaws let loose or loosen up and that come back. That could be really dangerous. That's a way to break bits. That's a way to get yourself hurt in various aspects of that. Okay. Now, if you have a keyless chuck, such as this smaller drill here, how does that work? We're going to put the countersink into this drill, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten that countersink down by hand as snug as I can, such as that, and get it really tight as much as I can. And one thing you can also do if you like is once you've done that, plug the drill in, make sure it's going in the forward position, just kind of hold and just give a little turn to make sure that that bit is in there snug. Once it's in there snug, you're ready to go and you can use it. Now on our cordless drill, there's a few other things to highlight on this cordless drill before we get too far into some other things. Now the cordless drill is a lot of times set up to be a variable speed drill, meaning that this one, the variable speed is up here. So it has a number 1 and then a number 2. And that 1 and 2 indicates how fast this chuck is going to spin. So on the 1, that's maxed out. On the 2, it's a lot faster. And that's because they've made these drills to be kind of dual purpose. And so if you are driving screws and using it as a powered screwdriver, then you're going to want to be on the number 1 setting. But when you're drilling, you're going to want to be on the number 2 if you're drilling into wood, because you want that bit spinning really, really fast and making a nice clean cut into the wood that you're using. The other thing that you'll see that this cordless drill and most cordless drills today have is they have a setting just behind the chuck, and you line up to the arrow. When I'm drilling, I want my arrow to be on this picture that's supposed to resemble a drill bit. If I'm driving screws, I'm going to set my setting to one of these other settings. And what this does is this is what's called a clutch. It has a clutch inside there so that when driving screws, you don't overdrive them into the wood or drive them too deep and split wood or anything like that. And so if you set this on, say, a lower setting, like a number 4, and you're driving, and I'll just demonstrate, if you're driving screws and the drill hits a fair amount of resistance, it's going to stop spinning, and I'll show you that just like this. You hear that noise? That's just the clutch, but you can see that I barely had a hold of it, and yet it's not spinning anymore because of this setting. Now if I were to increase that setting to 18 and hold the way I was holding before, it still spins, okay? And I have to grip a lot harder for it to do that. And then on the drill setting, there is no clutch, it's just wide open. Finally, the other bit, these are what we call the impacts. And so an impact is typically, again, used for driving screws. And if you can look close, you will see that the bit will move up, back and forth like that. Okay? That's because it is the impact drill. And so as this drill begins to hit a fair amount of resistance, instead of only spinning, it's also going to put a little impact pressure in there, and so it'll spin and push back and forth like that on your bit or screw to help increase the torque to drive those screws down. So the first one we're going to use today is the corded 1/2-inch drill, a little bigger bit. And so a few things to kind of check on. We know that it's tight, we already did that, we tightened our bit in, and we're still unplugged. I'm going to drill into this piece of wood right here, and I'm going to drill all the way through it. And so a couple of different things to kind of keep in mind as you go to drill. Number one is that because we're drilling in this application, we're going to want to make sure that we clamp our work securely to the table. One thing that you a lot of times want to do is find out where your hole is supposed to be. And you can see on the tip of these twist bits that they have a little bit of a place to start, but it's not much of a point. And so a lot of times when you go to start using a drill, you'll start to drill and the bit will tend to jump and move. One of the ways to eliminate that is to use either a punch, or if you don't have a punch, I like to use just a nail, and wherever my hole is going to start, I just take a nail and I make a little dimple into the wood. Now I have a place for that little point to lay into, so that when I'm ready to start drilling, I'm going to go right straight in. Now when I go to drill, I'm going to make sure that my drill is straight up and down, perpendicular to my board, so that my hole goes through straight. And I'm going to pull that trigger and I'm going to apply steady, even pressure all the way through the board. As I know that I'm getting close to the end of the board, as I get down in about this far, I'm going to let up on the pressure, and I'm going to ease up on the trigger a little bit, and I'm going to let that kind of plunge through that very back part all on its own and let it cut that out, hopefully eliminating a whole lot of splintering as it daylights on the other side of the hole. The other thing that you're going to want to do is partway into this hole, you're going to want to come back up with the drill and let any of the sawdust and things that tends to pack into the auger parts of the bit to fall off, so that you can finish drilling and kind of relieve that pressure. With that, we're going to go ahead and plug our drill in, and we're going to make our first hole. Again, straight up and down, find the point into the center of that hole that I already made. Light pressure to start, let the drill reach full speed, and then continue to add pressure as it goes all the way down. Again, making sure that my switch is going the right way, so that I'm not going in reverse, trying to drill the hole in. And here we go. And so you can see that's a pretty straightforward use. As soon as I'm done, I make sure that my drill is stopped before I lay it down, and I always unplug it when I am done. If using a cordless drill, the plan is essentially the same. We're going to drill a little smaller hole, but we're still going to make a little dimple, just because that really does help for that bit to run right in. I am drilling a hole so that my setting is on drill. I'm on 2, so I can drill this hole. And I'm just going to take this drill and I'm just going to run right straight through, similar to everything else. Okay? One thing that you may want to do, and that people like to sometimes do, is when they're drilling, they'll get all the way in and they'll stop, and they think that they have to turn the drill into reverse to back the bit back out. You really don't have to do that, because what you're trying to do is bore that hole anyways. And so as long as you continue to drill, and if I do a second hole, as long as I just continue to leave that drill running, it'll come right back out, no problem, if it's not bound or stuck or anything like that. One thing I do want to show you is using the cordless drill to drive a screw, and then we'll use the impact to drive a screw also. So I'm going to go ahead and take this drill bit out, and just like tightening a bit in, you take the bit out the same way, only you go the opposite direction. And so I take out my drill bit, I open up my jaws and I tighten down tight, and then I make sure it's good and snug. I'm going to adjust my speed to 1, and then I'm going to set my clutch so it's relatively sensitive, just so that you can kind of see what's going to happen as I go to drive this screw. So as I go to drive this screw, you can see that my clutch is kicked in and I stop because it's hit a certain amount of resistance. If I increase this to say 10, okay, I can go all the way in and be just fine. So if you ever are using the drill and all of a sudden it stops and it's making a kind of a clicking noise, check before getting freaked out, check the clutch setting and make sure that it's where you want it to be. The other tool that we can use to drive screws are these new impacts, and they're a great handy little tool. Bit goes in, similar concept, put the screw in, and as you go to drive, you can hear that noise. If you have a pre-drilled hole, it goes in pretty easy, but they also help if you want to drive without doing any pilot holes. Okay, and so that you can see and hear that impact starting to help drive those in, and that just drives right in. Really nice, handy little tool for using and driving screws. So that's it on drills. In class you'll take a safety test and we'll start using drills from there.